Sauerkraut is really, really good. Really like that. But you can take some of the juice and you can make a salad dressing with it, or you can take some of the juice and put it in like your guacamole. And so you're getting those fermented foods and you're getting those good bacteria into your family's
nice tangy taste too.
Yeah, it adds a tang.
After you get used to it, like, I mean, if you can just put these into meals for people, like if you're the one who's creating the meals, you know, just find a way to kind of work this in. I mean, I've always enjoyed it when I had it. You know, it's good. It's got a great flavor to it. All right.
So if you remember
I'm
that,
gonna put a little bit of that in here right now, and then I'm gonna.
Let's put it. I was gonna put it in a. Can you pour it in that?
Sure. Yeah.
So if you guys remember that we were saying that the probiotics, the actual good bugs, live on that liquid. What we want to do is push this down a little bit more, probably.
I'm just getting this one prepared.
So they live on that liquid, and so we don't want any oxygen to get in there, right? And so we use these cabbage leaves to protect from any air getting through. And so it's within this liquid that you ensure that this cabbage is only being eaten by good bacteria. It's not being eaten by bad pathogenic yeast and stuff. And how you know is that, you know, when you open it up, it'll smell sour but good. It won't be green. It won't have fuzzy mold on it. That's how you know. People often ask, how do you know if it's good? Because mold is green or fuzzy or brown. These will stay looking fresh. And Doug's going to push all this down, and he's probably going to pour off some of the top juice. But you actually can leave a little bit. It's okay, provided that you cover as much of the cabbage as possible. And sometimes if you find that your cabbage did get rotten, that's okay. Pull it off because it was the protective barrier. This is going to be so good.
Yeah.
This is going to be so good. A couple other variations that you can do is you can add a little ginger, you can add a little garlic, you can add a little apple cider vinegar or an apple. A lot of times we add an apple. We want to make this really easy for you, but we'll post below the video some others really good recipes that you can create with this. Also a tip is to not season your cultured veggies so much, not put so much garlic, not put so much any kind of spices.
It's going to spread that flavor around.
Yeah, and because you can do it afterwards.
You know, when you're, like, say you're going to put some ginger or something in there, do a small amount, because when it ferments, it's going to spread that flavor. And even though it's delicious, it's going to dominate everything.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of apple, that's got a really nice little flavor to it.
So we're just pouring off some of the top juice here. What would happen if I didn't do this is probably nothing except that the top could explode or juice can start dripping out. So now what Doug's going to do is he's going to go rinse this off with some really hot water and just get it all, make sure it's all wiped up and cleaned up. And
it's got a good seal.
It looks so good. It looks so pretty.
Yeah.
Show the camera. See that? That just looks so pretty. And so, here, do you want to wipe this off really quick? Then, as a final touch, because, you know, bacteria is alive and all life responds to vibration, words are made of vibration, we love to put love notes on our cultured veggies. We've actually had experience where we didn't do this and we had bad cultured veggies, but every time we put these mantras on there, we'll just put like love or gratitude. We get the best batches.
Light, energy.
We get the best batches. And so write anything that's important to you, but definitely put a blessing on your cultured foods, because the vibration does carry and does.
That's a very real thing. There's a Noetic Sciences talks all about just energy and the way that we use it. There's a lot of great studies that were done on water, which would be very easy for you to go ahead and look up.
Right.
But just setting your intention, just make it as positive as possible, because this is living. And you intend on, you know, ingesting digesting it. So
you intend on it to live inside of you and do what it's supposed to
you want it
do.
as best as it can be.
And just a little side note too, speaking of energy, is Doug and I are Reiki master teachers, and we run something called Psychic School. And in Psychic School, the true intention is to really open the pineal gland, and I would have no idea what any of that was, except that when I started eating these fermented foods, my psychic ability was so enhanced. And it's kind of that idea of as above, so below. You fix your gut, your brain kind of awakens, and the pineal gland is a brain function, psychic ability is a brain function. But also there is this, your enteric nervous system, it's like the vibrational way in which your gut actually communicates with your brain. And so putting good living bacteria in your gut, that's supposed to already be there, by the way, it's supposed to already be in your gut. We have to re-nourish ourselves with these foods for many, many, many reasons, the GMO thing and all that. It opens up our psychic ability, it opens up our brain, so it's something outrageously important.
But I just have it because they're awesome, because you'll enjoy it. Like,
you will love them.
If for any other reason, just make these and try them. They're so amazing for you. Like, they're just, God's medicine.
Heck yeah. So I think we're going to do the chocolate next.
Yeah.
So, for the chocolate recipe, it's super simple and very, very healing as well. Now, chocolate is a little controversial. I know a lot of really good health gurus out there who believe that chocolate is not medicine. And that could be because it's acidic. It is acidic in nature. It contains something called theobromine, which is kind of like a sister of caffeine. So it's not, chocolate in itself, I can see how people would say that it's not a healthy food. However, it is a very high vibrational food. It has a very ancestral connection to it. People have used it as medicine for thousands of years. And it's a heart opener. And these days it's very important that we open our hearts and we make decisions from our heart. But all that said, even I didn't do really good with chocolate. People with low thyroid don't often do good with chocolate either. But I wanted it, everyone wants it, it looks so good. So I thought, why not ferment it? And with fermented chocolate, we've been able to create candies that we can put superfoods and supplements in. And
for children, for people who won't have anything, they will eat these chocolates. They're so delicious.
Yeah.
And you can put anything that you want in them in any type of form. Like, we're going to be doing it fermented, and the concept of fermented chocolates is so delicious to me. Because I know its benefit. Like, I'm not going to be having some junky candy bar. This is it's so delicious and it's so good for you.
So what we're going to need to make this is you're going to start out with some cacao butter, and you can also use coconut oil, but cacao butter is the fat part of your chocolate, and that's what's going to allow your candy to actually set and be hard so that you don't have to put it in the refrigerator. And then the other thing you need is some cacao powder. Both of these are raw, organic, and they're not local, but they are fair trade, and that's very important. When we were living in Mexico, we got to experience the fair trade, the local chocolate in Sayulita, Mexico, that was from Oaxaca. So just daydreams of living in beautiful Mexico. So all you need are these two things to begin with. Some sweetener, which you could use coconut sugar, you could use regular sugar, you could use, I'm using maple syrup today. There's a little bit of controversy over whether or not honey can be used, because they say honey kills good bacteria. I've used honey, but since I'm not in a lab, I can't really tell you if it worked or not. So I am using maple syrup today because that's what I have, and it's very sweet, so it helps feed the good bacteria. And then you need some form of starter. You can use a body ecology kefir starter, culture starter. I'm going to use homemade coconut kefir, just a little bit of it. And so you want to take your kind of brick of cacao butter and you want to shred it into a heart shape. Must be in a heart shape? Just kidding. Well, it should be though, because cacao is from heart. So shred it up, and then you're going to melt it. Now we want to keep it raw because with raw you have all the enzymes. So it can melt maybe about 85, 90 degrees. That's okay. You can do this in a food dehydrator, which I think is best, or you can do it on a double boiler. Just make sure that the temperature doesn't get up. How you do that, just stick it in a bowl on top of a pot with boiling water and watch the temperature.
You don't need any special.
You don't need anything special.
equipment.
Do you want to grab you my chocolate?
Sure.
Okay. So once you've got your shredded cacao all melted nicely, you're going to take your cacao powder and you're going to mix it up together with that. The cacao powder to cacao butter ratio really depends on how dark you want your chocolate. Okay? So it doesn't, how I do it is I do 2/3 cacao butter and 1/3 cacao powder. So that way it's not so dark, because I'm going to add in other flavors and I'm going to want to make it less caffeine and less acidic. So once you have those, the melted cacao and the cacao powder, you mix them up. I like to mix them up in a blender because it makes it so that they don't separate. So you mix them up in a blender, and then you add in your sweetener, and you would mix that up in a blender too. Now, as far as sweetener goes, you don't need a lot. The more sweetener you put in, the more food you have for the bacteria, but the bacteria are going to eat the sweetener. So if you want it to ferment quickly, don't put too much sweetener. Otherwise, if you decide to eat it and it's not done fermenting, then you will be eating sugar, and that might not be something that you want. And when you're fermenting foods, you really don't want the sugar. That's why you're eating fermented foods, to help you digest your sugar. So you mix all that great stuff up.
And the reason why you do this in a blender is just so that way it separates. I mean, well, actually, that it goes together. That was a beautiful sound.
I hope you heard that. Smell that. And it's like popping.
Yeah,
it's like snap.
that sound is what you want to hear. Like, I love that sound.
It's like a fizzing sound. So the cacao is all like, this is chocolate candy, by the way. By itself, you could just pour this in a mold and make chocolate candy. But what we're going to go one step farther, we're going to add, for every, let's say, 3 cups total of mixture, you're going to add about maybe 1/4 of a cup of coconut kefir. And I'll put the recipe below the video. We already have a recipe on our site. I just kind of want to show you.
You don't want to mix that up. Like, if you have a Vitamix or something, don't turn it on your kefir.
Exactly. So you've blended everything in a blender, but then when you're putting in the kefir, or you're putting in whatever you want to use as a starter, stir it in, because you don't want to kill the bacteria. So now I've got bacteria, living, wonderful, good bacteria. I've got cacao butter and cacao powder. Next step to do is allow this wonderful thing to ferment. So you pour it in a sterile veganized jar, or any other kind of jar as long as it's from a non-GMO food. You pour it in there. I'm not going to do that because I'm actually going to add the additives, but you would pour it in there, seal it up, must all be completely sterile. And then it needs to sit at about 80 degrees, let's say 80 degrees, around 80 degrees, for about a day, so that the sugars can be eaten by the good bacteria.
So if you make like bone broths or anything like that, and you're doing it in, a crock pot, then you just set these right next to them, and it's like the perfect scenario for them.
Fermented foods need to ferment anywhere from 75 to 90 degrees. The probiotics will die when it's colder or hotter than that. Now, this is especially important with this food, with this cacao, because it will get hard if it's too cold. So keep it at around 80 degrees, but like Doug said, what I like to do is coordinate it with the bone broth that's being made, and just stick it by the crock pot, and it keeps it warm, and you want it to be kept in its liquid state while it's fermenting.